Hey there friends, Glenn with the Cactus Atlas. About to pack up my tent here at Kodachrome Basin State Park, and we're gonna mosey on over to Fruita Campground inside of Capitol Reef National Park. And then we're gonna document the whole journey in between through maybe some of the most beautiful country I think you'll ever see. I just finished last week's episode, did the outro right here where I'm standing, and I said I'd start the next episode here, and that's what I'm doing. And we're overlooking Bryce View Campground, where I've spent 4 nights here in Kodachrome. And you can see why they call it Bryce View. If you look in the background, there's all these orange cliffs and hoodoos and the familiar sights of Bryce Canyon National Park right over there with Kodachrome Basin in the foreground. I mean, it's amazing. Make sure to check out all of our content. Of course, we have a second channel called Camp View, which is dedicated to camping life, campgrounds, campground reviews, campground scouting out campsites, all of that kind of stuff. So if you ever wanted to stay here in this park, I cover it deeply, and there's some interesting things that happened during that time that we may end up showing on Camp View. So be sure to check out that second channel. We'll put a link down below. But I can tell you here, yeah, this campground here, Kodachrome, is amazing, and I just can't believe how it's just not, there's nobody here. As for us today though, this is more of a, I would say a traditional Cactus Atlas, maybe road trip. Although be it a short one. I think we probably have an hour and a half or so of driving, pure driving, but many stops along the way as we take the All-American Highway, Utah State Route 12 between Kodachrome, or we'll just say Tropic. Gonna drive through the town of Escalante where we've been before, and then regions beyond through Boulder, and then all the way up to Capitol Reef where we're staying tonight. So this episode starts here at one campground here in the morning at Kodachrome, and I plan on ending it when my tent is set up in my new campsite at Capitol Reef. We are now departing Bryce View Campground. Bye! This is such a good place. I think it will just be interesting to compare and contrast. Just burn this into your mind. Burn my remaining moments in this park in your mind. The emptiness, the seclusion, the peace, the beauty. And we'll cross our fingers and say that Capitol Reef is going to be the same, especially Fruita Campground. But I have 4 nights there, and as I'm finding on these trips, especially in the summer when a lot of the tourists are out, there is going to be bad behavior there. It's a statistical reality. The question is, am I gonna have the bad luck again? Am I gonna get the bad sight next to the people? So that's really the reason to keep watching the episode, is to see if old Glenn flips his lid once and for all and just takes all of his crap and says, I quit, I can't deal with it anymore. I don't think I will though. I think I've come to terms and peace with a lot of that over the course of the trip, or maybe I'm just telling myself something I need to hear to get through it. But I needed Kodachrome. Kodachrome, you healed me. And as I'm driving down, you're gonna, in this video, we're gonna get a little view of Kodachrome, which maybe this is your first time seeing this video, or Kodachrome. If seeing this makes you want to learn more, to see more, we made a video as last week's video here on the Cactus Atlas on Kodachrome Basin State Park, and I explore the grounds. I reminisce on past trips here and things that I did. We discuss, see that big gray column right there, that what's known as a sedimentary pipe. We discuss the theories about how those are formed, and we just enjoy the color, the reason why Kodachrome got its name. So do check it out. We can put a link in the description below for that for you too. The point of this drive is to enjoy, or the video is to enjoy the drive. I want to just be a Sunday driver. It's Sunday. It's 50 degrees. You hear me? 50, according to my temperature gauge here in the truck. And I just want to enjoy it, and then casually drive between here and Fruita Campground at Capitol Reef, taking the All-American Highway, I think most of the way. It connects with another route, I think 24? I am just going by memory, so I could have that wrong. But and along that route, you're gonna see this beautiful sandstone landscape, unlike no other maybe. And I got a taste of it. when I finished the Hell's Backbone video, for example, some of you said, oh, you didn't show the best stuff, or did you? I knew it was there. The plan was to make more videos and to not spoil it until I got sick. So now you know. So now is my chance to go back through it. And I'm basically doing the inverse, like I told you, of a plan I already had for a video with some changes. But that's really it. Just drive the speed limit, drive slower than the speed limit, I don't know, just enjoy, capture road footage, and then a lot of scenic overlooks right off the road to pull over. So we're gonna stop, enjoy the landscape. Excuse me, I'm drinking a Coke. I needed something to sugar up a little bit. I'm going to then stop at a museum along the way, something that's of particular interest to me and something we talk about on the channel a lot. And then anything else I find. So I don't want to rush. I don't want to worry, is it going to be too long a video, too short a video? It's really just kind of documenting my travel day as I'm hopping from one campground to another through maybe one of the most beautiful landscapes on this planet Earth. There you go. So according to the sign back there, we just passed into Cannonville, a sleepy little town here in Utah. And I've seen this scene at all different times of the day. And while this may not be the best time of the day, I wanted to show this to you because I would say, if anything, if you say the word Utah or the name Utah, this is the image that comes to my mind immediately. This describes it all. Well, that's if you take out the barbed wire fence, so. But that old, I don't know if that's an old cabin, or maybe like storage shed or something like that, and those backdrops here up in the Escalante. Iconic and classic Utah, quiet, lush yet desolate. Absolutely beautiful. It's the kind of scenery that could bring a little bit of a tear to a guy's eye. You know, it's just it's almost perfection to me. Utah. I promised myself I would stop here. You could tell I'm not the only one. There's a big like dirt pull out here. I hope the private landowners up there in that beautiful home don't mind. I mean, it's probably public, I'm guessing, but off of this public road. I didn't see anybody else really stopping there though. Only those with a discerning eye would stop. I'm just kidding. I think anybody that would see that would be like, wow, masterpiece. So I think this is still Cannonville, or is this Henryville? See, I never really took time to figure that out. If you go left, that's how you get the Tropic. When I say go left, we're about to hit the All-American Highway. That's why I am filming now. There is the Escalante Visitor Center here, or an Escalante Visitor Center if you needed info about anything where we're gonna go. This is maybe considered the entryway maybe to the places we're going. So if I made a left, we'd go to Bryce Canyon, but we're making a right to go to some familiar places and then places we've never been. We're in familiar territory now. Escalante Petrified Forest State Park. There's where you would have turned. And when I was staying here, I turned left many times to go into this town of Escalante, where we're about to go again. I actually could probably serve to top off my fuel tank here and maybe get a flavored cold drink of some sort. I don't know, but we'll get out here, and then that's kind of like what I would say for sure on the Cactus Atlas, that's pretty much as far as you would have seen me film, because it wasn't as far as I went, because when I got done with the Hell's Backbone, if you know where that let me out, you know what I would have seen on my return trip back to my campsite. But for those of you that might have missed all those episodes, this is the town of Escalante here. So I want to keep rolling it, because any second now I'm expecting just to see the magic that I know is out there. For the brief time I saw it, I didn't really get to study it carefully because I was just driving through it, but I wondered if I found my ultimate landscape, like for my taste, what I love out here. And now we get to kind of take our time and pass through it and stop and relax and enjoy it. I thought this is appropriate considering the landscape that's about to be revealed, and this really feels like an appropriate sign that I should capture, and this would have been a good one for an intro for a video. My primary motivation for making this quick stop, kind of we're about to enter this landscape unlike any other here, but this is where the Hole in the Rock Trail starts, and I wanted to point out to everybody out here is I'm aware of what's down there. There may or may not be an episode upcoming on it, but it's kind of a point for me to say, a lot of you are gonna say, like, you missed this, you missed that. Like, no, we didn't. If we missed it, it's probably because we didn't have time. But we're aware of these things, so just, And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue down Highway 12, the All-American Highway in Utah, where I'm gonna blow your ever-loving minds. Are you ready? And now the game begins. When is that landscape going to be revealed? Is it gonna be all of a sudden? I don't know. I feel like over every rise now, my neck tingles with excitement. I'm starting a fresh roll in here to see. Something tells me, yep, you can start to see the landscape now stretch, and it's just rock and sandstone all of a sudden. See what I'm talking about? Now I'm gonna just stop at these scenic turnouts. Since I don't have a drone, well, I do have the drone, but since my drone doesn't have batteries, getting vantage points from up high here, I think, is the next best thing. And it just gets better from my remembrance heading down into this thing. So, but we can at least kind of survey from up high like an eagle. Yeah, this is exactly what I was hoping. I think you can actually see the All-American Highway winding down through this landscape that we're about to go. And now you're starting to see, boy, this might be one of the most scenic drives in the United States. And when you get down there too, you'll see a lot more color and just really weird formations. But this is it. This sign's kind of interesting in that this is another civilian conservation corps. I mean, these people it's just everywhere. They did so much, but they're talking about how they were out here building roads, and they had mule trains to do all that. You could see old pictures here. Must have been like such a cool adventure if you got a job doing that. I'm sure it was backbreaking work, but to come out to these places when they were just new in the American consciousness at the time, and probably still relatively unknown. The cream cellar route is what they're talking about, what they built. So not necessarily the modern all-American highway, but they're just talking about the history of that route building through this area. There's something with me in sandstone landscapes that I never understood. It's just this instant feeling of well-being that I always get when I see it, and I feel the warmth. Anywhere I stay, like a Valley of Fire State Park, Capitol Reef's probably going to be the same thing. The San Rafael Swell, anything like that behind the reef. I just feel like instant healing in a weird way. I'm not spiritual like that, or weird, like it's not that kind of thing. I don't know. Some of you are going to say, oh, that's why it is, though. I don't know. Maybe you're right. There's a sign right here that talks about various things that you can see, and I'm going to kind of look at it while I point them out. If you look behind that tan sandstone at that landmass way off in the distance behind it, kind of hazy, that's known as the Aquarius Plateau, and that's Boulder Mountain. And then if we look to the right of this thing, like in this general area, it's pointing that out as the Escalante River Corridor. And then the mountains across the way that you should see in the distance are the Henry Mountains, the leftmost ones. Then as we move over to the right a little bit, it's the Little Rocky Mountains, then the La Salle Mountains, and then a couple other things they point out. But that's cool. It's nice to get acquainted with the landscape, and I appreciate signs like that that help it, because I wouldn't know. So what do you guys say? You ready to get down in there? I know I am. I know I am. Let's go. All right. I'm gonna continue. Actually, I'm in a really good mood today. And Amy and I have been talking about like people that have been just really weird and off the hook, just rude and weird. I don't know what this guy on the motorcycle pulled up. And this is after I was even done filming with a gimbal, right? I had my normal camera. I was just taking still photos. And he's behind the trees there, and he just yells, "Effing a-hole." Like, I think at me. Like, I assume he was talking to me. But he seems like disturbed or mad or something. I don't know. Doesn't seem like a normal dude. I don't know what he's doing. Like, he went off and hid in the... or maybe he was mad at some mechanical thing. He's yelling at his camera or something. I don't know. I'm like... it's just best to move on, I would say. Wow. It's just such a different vibe already coming down into it. Looking from up above, it looked awesome, but now I feel like I'm in a different world already. This whole world of sandstone. There's a lot of cool things here. Like an example of something that I had on my itinerary to do, and I don't know, maybe we will. But the reason if I don't is more because I left my drone at home, and there are some things that I wanted to use it on, like this Escalante natural bridge. There's a short hike somewhere out here I want to do, for example. And that was actually supposed to be part of this itinerary originally. But now I'm like, it's like in the middle of the day, so it's hot. Let's see what the temperature is now. Almost 90. So think about that for a second. I was cold this morning. It was like 48 degrees. And it probably is about the same in this region too. I wouldn't be surprised. And it's almost 90 now, like it would be back where I was. Ooh, another steep drop off. So I'm getting older. I'm pushing 50 here. So the prospect of hiking in this heat is not as fun as it used to be. In fact, I'm kind of going off of my mental map that I made when I was planning this thing, and I bet you that hike that I'm talking about is probably at the bottom of this thing, I bet, at this little canyon we're going. And there's a scenic pullout coming up too, so I'm gonna stop. We're gonna enjoy, ooh yes, these scenic pullouts like this one. Hopefully that guy in the motorcycle, I think he was coming the other way, so I don't think he's going to be muttering epithets here, either to himself or who knows what. I wonder if there's the natural bridge here and we can see it if I'm in the right spot. That is pretty though. Let me go show you. Look at that. That is beautiful. That'll be Escalante Canyon, with the Escalante River, I presume, flowing through it. And a sign basically just talking about how it's been a lifeline for people for centuries, including the Anasazi, or the ancestral Puebloans that lived in this area. Look at that. If I'm right, and that is where the natural bridge hike goes, somewhere in there, I need to make it a point to come back if I'm not doing it. There's like a trailhead or some pull-off. I just think it's at the bottom of like a canyon like this from my remembrance, and if it's there, I almost wonder, is that the trail? All right, this is a fool's errand, just trying to surmise on something I don't know what I'm talking about at this point, so let's just enjoy. When I look at these landscapes, I oftentimes do just like to pretend those wires aren't there, first of all, and maybe pretend that I've gone back 800, 1,000 years, and I could kind of sit here like, unknown to the people wandering around down there, the Anasazi or the ancestral Puebloans, and just observe and watch how they lived. That was a great view. I would never say this, having my drone has become like a lot like my life's blood in a way. Not having it is hard, but having these overlooks like that where you get a bird's eye view helps tremendously to mend the pain that I'm having. But let's continue. And I'm sure it's just seeing it from the road, like a ride like this is cool. All right, Kiva Coffee House. I know on the map I remember seeing some random coffee house. My question is, whoever has that freaking coffee house, how did you get that land to build that business there? And how do I get in on something like that? I have lots of ideas that I could do out here to not only profit for myself, but others too. Wow, I'm looking down this way, there's all these cottonwoods, I assume cottonwoods, all up and down the river. And we're gonna go way down into this landscape we were just pondering and looking down. So we drove all the way across from the other side. thank God I was able to get the GoPros rolling because I wanted to capture this. Up here I see something called Hell's Backbone Road. So I'm gonna presume this is where I came out. It has to be. So you heard a lot about Hell's Backbone on this episode. Amy's probably tried to entice you with some of the photography I took up there. But now officially, once I see the road. I think it's right here. See that? Right there, right there, right there. It turns in the dirt, but that's where I believe I came out. Now I'm in unfamiliar territory officially. Driving a stretch of highway I've never driven in my life. I've never set eyes on it. I like new. It's nice to get new sometimes. Look how those barns, it's like a postcard. And then there's a bunch of sheep. I actually saw like a herd of sheep. I was in the middle of them crossing a road, and then a guy on a horse with his dog, the sheep herder, was trying to wrangle them. But what I noticed, sheep aren't too smart. I just stopped. I had to come to a complete stop because some of them were just like walking right up on my vehicle, like walking, I couldn't even see them crossing in front of me. And I was like, if I move, I'm gonna run over one of these things. So, okay, State Park ahead. I bet you that is my Anasazi State Park Museum, is it not? Is it here? Or there's another brown sign? I'm just kind of going with the flow, following signs. We'll check it out. I think it's a small thing, which I'm hoping it is, because I don't have like, I'm trying to take it easy and enjoy, but, okay, well, where do I go? Like right here, I guess? Yeah, okay. This would be at Anasazi State Park Museum. I'm hoping I see some covered, like, awning type things back there, pavilions, and I'm hoping there's like archaeology here, things we can actually see. I don't know anything about it. I just saw it on Google Maps and I told Amy, hey, that might be a place to check out. So I'm here to check it out. It's very nice over here too, and just the shade of these trees and the nice light breeze. Just nice. That's how I'll describe this video, it's just nice. Okay, cool. So this is what I was hoping. It's basically, what we're gonna see here are the remains of an old village that was a village to many people, including the Anasazi, or the ancestral Puebloan people, as well as the Fremont cultures. And Fremont cultures, I guess on our channel, what we've seen of them are the really eerie pictographs out in like the San Rafael Swell, where we've shown some of those really weird looking things, and I think those are associated with the Fremont culture. I don't know much about that culture, but this culture, the ancestral Puebloans, who are associated with places like Chaco Canyon, and that makes this especially cool, because now I've seen other settlements that those folks have made. This one's kind of far out on the periphery, I would think, of their territory. But we are getting closer to the Four Corners region, where you see a lot of that stuff. Look at that, ask and you shall receive. I wasn't incorrect in saying that. Actually, sometimes I surprise myself. We are kind of on the periphery of that blue bubble. That's really the territory of that. And then Chaco Canyon is part of it. See, I don't lie to you guys. Mesa Verde is also, of course, it. And here we are at Coombs Village. This one today. All right. The old village. It's currently free. She said there's no charge, and then she said, oh, we're remodeling. It smells new in there, so I think they're making a museum or something. There's a gift shop. Maybe I'll buy something if there's something worth buying to support it. But yeah, no charge. Just come on back and check out the village if you want, at least right now. So the first thing you see off the bat, it mentions the ancestral Puebloans began to construct above ground structures between 700 and 1000 AD. And these are replicas of their residences. You can go inside, it says. Can I fit in there though? I don't know. I honestly am questioning if I can fit in there. Oh my goodness, I have to though, don't I? I mean, I know standing up's gonna be a challenge. I imagine these people were much shorter than European descendants like me that are pushing 6'2". I can say that for sure when I go to Chaco Canyon. That place is back-breaking work. Literally for me, bending over. But let's study the outside first. One cool thing off the bat is I don't think I've seen this type of a structure, at least a replica that looks like this. I'm familiar with the great houses, really the only thing that I've seen. So I'm guessing this is more of the family unit level. A lot of those great houses, I've read are not, they're really thought to have not been even residential areas as much as like ceremonial centers and gathering places. So this is kind of more akin to probably what home was like for the average folk, and it's actually a lot more elaborate and neat than I thought. But you could see the same construction techniques that you'll see at great houses, like the use of these, poles of the wood, probably like juniper or cedar or something, and mud and rock, very precisely placed at times. So I'm curious now when I go in there, how much cooler is it going to be? Because it's hot now. It's probably in the low 90s. Let's see if this mud keeps things nice and cool like an AC. It is much cooler in here than outside. It's actually quite comfortable. There's a little fire pit here in the middle, and I'm guessing they would have had a hole for the smoke to go out. I'm kind of bending down because sometimes you have bats in these that like to roost on these beams. I don't want to bump my head into one of those. But anyway, this is really neat. I'm guessing these people were very, very short. It's amazing how cooling that is. If it, I don't know what it would be like at 107, like if you're in Phoenix, Hohokam style, but I would be totally fine living in something like that from a keeping cool perspective, but yeah, not having to bend down, that ain't gonna work. So this is talking about what we're looking over here was basically a multi-room pueblo, and it would have looked, something like that, they say. Where, what's weird to me, seeing this off the bat, and I tell me if I'm crazy, lots of doors here on the sides, right? And then your traditional entryways on the roof, normally what I'm used to is you wouldn't have both. You'd have no door on the side, but is that accurate? And then let me ask this, what's the point of this if you've got that? I guess the stop is perfect. It is a really small stop, but I'm guessing this is where the excavation was, and we're gonna see hopefully whatever's left. I don't expect anything like mind-blowing or visually mind-blowing, but wow. As this says, you can see both residential and storage rooms, and this is pointing out the I guess the L shape. If we're aligned with the L the same way, that would be here and then this way. So what this is telling me is we're kind of looking at a residential area, not storage. And as one might expect, I guess, I see a few things that would lend credence to that maybe. The rooms seem bigger. And I don't know if those things were for like grinding or for maybe fires, I'm gonna guess, like a fireplace or a fire pit in the middle of the room like we saw in that other residence. So that's my guess. I'm trying to interpret this for you. And then over here, it mentions those are storage. And that visually makes sense to me because those are a lot smaller. Like it's like someone's closet almost. So they probably would have been storing a lot of their grains, and that's one thing that these cultures were able to do, if you read about it, is they could stock for the future, which allowed a lot of these cultures to plant roots and not wander like a lot of other tribes that we associate. Like, think of the Apache, much different style of existence than these people would have had. This was more plant your roots and probably not raiding and things like that. It's interesting too to see the difference between cultures and how they build their homes, even from different eras. I'm thinking something that came to mind was so the Hohokam, I think, are one of my favorite cultures to study, and they did some pretty intricate things. But later on, those that are their ancestors, like the Tohono O'odham, if you go down to southern Arizona and you see some of the Spanish missions, they had recreated mud homes from those people, and it was almost like it was Ocotillo, I don't know, branches or whatever, and just a lot of mud. It smelled really earthen, and those people were around at a much later time, after Columbus had even discovered America. And then here are people that were contemporaries of the Hohokam. And dare I say this, because it could sound very wrong and insulting, but it almost seems like construction techniques took they went backwards after a certain time as things got simpler and almost like more remedial. And these things are a little bit more intricate. They say at one point the Southwest had just extreme droughts year after year after year. And if you think of these people making a living off of farming, they were good at stocking up and having granaries and things like that to weather out certain, bad seasons. But after a certain point, that will be stressed and just break down. And here in the Southwest, something went down, and they think it could have involved a lot of conflict with people, but they don't know for sure. But that's the point at which all of these cultures just seem to kind of go away. All around the same time almost. So if resources are really strained and people are starving and you have to basically have mass migrations out of the area, these grand societies that start to form that start to bring people together to have construction projects and organized labor, that all breaks down, and it probably becomes a more everybody fend for yourself survival situation. So what I imagine is families, units, and all of these great houses probably just kind of distributed at some point. And because of that breakdown in the culture and society, when I look at later structures and I say, oh, that doesn't seem as intricate, I'm not trying to sound insulting or anything like that. What I'm trying to get to the bottom of, it's probably more feasible to build like that if you're dealing with smaller family units rather than what I imagine these people were probably collections of extended families. I've read certain cultures like Perry Mesa as an example. Maybe it's just huge extended families that build these great houses, or they start off that way. These are my theories, though. I don't know. I'm not well read on a collegiate level on all this stuff, but I like to throw these things out there because people do respond, and you give your perspective on it, and I enjoy that. Even if you disagree or conflict with anything I'm saying, I still enjoy the dialogue and the discussion. And therein lies too, I learned about, there's just a whole world that I really didn't know about around this and people's beliefs in these people. And it's just interesting because some tribes tend to describe these people as cannibals that enslaved their people at some point. And when we talk about kivas, those were not ceremonial things, but those were, I guess, places just to dump prisoners in while they waited their, time to be cannibalized. That's a very popular story, and I read some of how that came to be. Really, where that comes from is, I think I don't want to misquote, but I don't want to say Farmington, New Mexico, is it? They found one place where there was evidence of cannibalism, and then I read, and I think somebody in the archaeology industry or somebody at some agency kind of supported it even, but then I read an opposing paper from one of the gentlemen that I think found some of that evidence that was basically presenting coprolite studies, hundreds of them from these people. What is coprolites? It's their poop. They find these people's 100-year-old poop, and then they can see what they were eating, and guess what? There's no evidence of cannibalism on a widespread scale. That's just all I know is about that one thing. You know what they're eating is corn and the stuff they're planting, and probably supplanting it with things like rabbits and all the stuff they're hunting. That's what these people, that's what science, the science I read, that I subscribe to, believes. So how timely is that? This is exactly what this is talking about. So they not only coprolite studies, this doesn't talk about this, but what they found in like their charred remains of fires and stuff, seeds and stuff. Nothing about human bones and all of this kind of stuff that people want to tell you. So be careful when you say that. Be careful. This is an interesting observation here. They talk about pit houses, and normally pit houses you associate when you study these cultures with earlier times, earlier than this kind of stuff. People like digging pits and then doing this, but I think what the sign is indicating is that this area, this is kind of interesting, is that even though they were living more above ground at this time, they still were doing this because it's a lot cooler. You will keep even cooler if you do that. So that makes total sense. And I guess my final thought there is, when I say things like that too, I like to marvel on the insights these people had into the heavens and the cycles of the sky and how they use that to live. And a lot of European descendants kind of point out really quickly, well, we did that, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, yes, I would agree that the societies that came from that were more technologically advanced on a faster time scale. And it's interesting to read about the theories behind that. One that I never thought about was in Europe and Asia, things happened on east-west trade routes where there wasn't probably as much variance in climate and temperature, so a lot of influence was able to flow a lot more. Where in North America, things happened, in South America, things happened in a much more north and south flow, probably having to deal with much more extremes of climate and a lot more barriers to make it a slower progress. But I would say what really fascinates me about cultures like this are these are the ones that were really settling their roots. These were the people that were going to lead the charge in technology, and they were well on their way to doing some extraordinary things. And it's interesting to see and compare humans. Who cares about who got where first? It's really interesting to see the innovations occur in an isolated way, and some of the similarities that match, what you would see in Europe and stuff like that. People derived it here on their own, right? So let's say they would have come upon the wheel. Like, it's interesting to think, would that have been a natural progression of things regardless of where you came from? But unfortunately, we all know the story. These people were never left to finish what they started, not because of the white people coming over here. Once again, remember, climate and something just wiped them out the culture and it was gone. But given time, what could have been is really what excites me and what I would want to think about. And if you're still not convinced, I think you really need to go to Chaco Canyon, to, I think, really start to see how amazing what they were up to. And I that would be my best advice, is go to somewhere like that, read a couple books, and with an open mind, and think of the things that I'm saying. And to me, it takes you on a fascinating journey. All right, we are now leaving this museum. That was a nice little stop. I actually really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed pondering the life of these people. So in the grand scheme of things, that wasn't that long ago. 700 to 1,000 years ago is just not even a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things. So we have about 36 miles, it looks like 35 miles to get to 24. I was right when I said that earlier. And then 46 miles total to get to Fruta Campground, where I'm camping tonight in Capitol Reef National Park. There's an old cemetery right there too, Boulder Cemetery, although a lot of the headstones look pretty recent to me. So I don't really know what's beyond here. I may just kind of at this point, let's get some distance under our belts, I guess, so I don't sit here and be chatty Cathy the whole way. And even though this is a beautiful landscape, still it's not as dramatic as what we had back there. So I'm gonna be on guard, but we'll probably connect up the road at the very least if I don't see anything of major interest or a scenic pull-off or something up towards 24. had to start rolling here because we're climbing up an elevation really abruptly in ponderosa pine forest and meadows and some cows on the side of the road. That whole sandstone landscape back there is a distant memory now. I feel like I'm in a completely different world. All right, coming up here, I had to pull over and show you this because now it's really going to put it in perspective where we've come from and where we're going. That whole landscape is visible down below. Bryce and Kodachrome are now a distant memory. Wouldn't know they're there anymore. Okay, time to continue our drive, our Sunday drive. I should probably mention is that Capitol Reef, I've never been to it before. That is going to be a first. It's the last of the big 5 Utah national parks, which would be Arches, Canyonlands, Zion, Bryce, and Capitol Reef. And if you've watched the Cactus Atlas, you've seen me in all of those except for one. It's been a long time coming. I've been looking forward to it. I don't know why I haven't done it sooner. Alright, we are about less than a mile away from our turn on to 24. And look at that landscape ahead of us, just mountains of red. Wow. I wish it wasn't so hazy, or maybe a little bit later in the day or something. But sunset on those rocks would be amazing with the sun out west from here. Wow. What a drive this has been. I would agree that scenic, All-American Highway 12, especially if you did the whole thing, like from maybe 89 all the way out to where I just turned, or vice versa, that would be the thing. And you're going to just see such variance in landscapes. Think back now this morning when we were departing Kodachrome, and think of that landscape on Kodachrome Road. And now, about an hour away from there, look at this. Totally different. Maybe totally different in terms of look, but you know, in terms of composition, there's probably a lot of similarities. Panorama Point goosenecks. Wow, just look at the majesty of this landscape. Okay, so never having been to Capitol Reef, I kind of knew what to expect, and I knew it consists of some of my favorite landscapes of all time, and now we're in it, and yes, 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 and yes, and oh my goodness, that is towering. So don't worry, I'm here for 4 days, well, 3 more days, because today's really the first day. But I will be, you know, spending time in the park, exploring and doing some stuff. Like I mentioned, got a couple options of things to do back that a ways. So don't worry. This should be a preview of things to come, hopefully. It's really pretty, though, how this campground is apparently tucked away here, like almost like in a canyon. I guess you got one side. There's nothing on the other side to make it a canyon, I guess, but feels canyon-y, kind of. Gosh, I really, truly am nervous. I got adrenaline. I have the butterfly feeling because I'm expecting a problem. I really am. And there's marmot crossing here. They have marmots here. I like marmots. All right, I've arrived at Site 40. Let me see if my name's on the post. It is. and everything looks correct. I'm checking out on August the 1st. I'm here on the 28th, and now let me tell you what I think, because it probably meets my expectations, but I'm not the most excited. Privacy is caca here, mainly because there's really all the sight lines aren't blocked, but the sights are, I guess they're spread out about the usual for a national park campground, but there's my little area. I was like, where's my site? So I guess this general area is mine, and then my neighbors are like right here, which is odd, because my driveway's closer to that than theirs is, but whatever. These things are to be expected. But the shade situation, probably some of the best shade I've had on any trip in my travels, so that pleases me very much. But the only other thing I'm not super excited about is the ground's kind of lumpy and not very level. I'm like, where do I even put my tent? I guess anywhere I want back here, but not quite sure. All right, folks, I'm gonna leave it here. If you want to see how things end up going for me, tune into Campview, our other channel. We'll put a link down below where I'll be doing a review of the campground, a walk around, being critical where it deserves to be critical, and I'll also do a campground drive-through so you can select a site. It'll help you scout out sites if you want to stay here. And other than that, thanks for joining me for this beautiful drive on this Sunday. I really had a good time. Now I gotta set up my tent and do more work for you. See you next week.